Proverbs chapter 18. Appreciate God for His goodness, bringing us back together again. We look into God's Word, Proverbs chapter 18. Verse number 1, dealing with the subject of ministering in the church of God. Ministering in the church of God. Proverbs chapter 18, verse number 1. It says, through a desire, a man having separated himself, seeketh and intermeddleth with all wisdom. God does not just use anybody.
My God.
There is a definite blessing that the God of creation has chosen to utilize humanity to further His cause on earth. And when you study the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, you'll see where God used or chose to use humanity, men and women, to carry out His cause on earth. That's why it's so important when a person gives their life to God that they really understand that they need to be consecrated so that God can use them in a real way. Well, we began speaking on this last week, and we spoke on how there is definitely a need today like never before. There's a scripture that says that the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. I heard a stat one time mentioned that 80% of the work in the church is done by 20% of the people. Well, we want to make sure that we don't have that among us. We want everybody to carry their own weight. We want everybody, let me say this, God has something for every one of us to do. Amen. And no one can do what God would have for you to do better than you can do what God has for you to do. Amen. You never have to worry about jealousy or envy or this. Nobody can beat you being you. Amen. Nobody can replace you. That's one of the things when I got saved, that was a huge relief, because when you're in the athletic world, there's always somebody nipping at your bits. Somebody's always nipping at your heels. Somebody's always trying to get, and you dealing with that constant pressure, or you trying to be that girl at the club, or this, that, and the other. It's always somebody trying to push you aside. But Jesus said, come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden. You trying to fit in, trying to be that guy. You come and get saved, you can just let God have His way. Amen. You can just rest in the things of God. I want to please God. Amen. And whatever God has for me, nobody can take from me. I don't have to go around trying to butter up people, because the Bible said He whom the Lord commended. Yes. I just want to make sure I'm right with God and allow Him to commend. And once God commends, that's all the commending that we need. So we're going to look into several aspects of ministering in the church. We're going to talk about callings. We're going to talk about laboring in different capacity. We're going to talk about laboring and the relationship to the saints. The relationship when laboring outside of your own congregation. Also, laboring in regards to your family. We're going to talk about the calling first. Let's go over to 1 Samuel 3, verse number 1. We're going to pull from here, and there's several callings in Scripture. We're going to pull points from the calling of Samuel. It says, and the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli. And the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision. And it came to pass at that time, when Eli was laid down in his place, and his eyes began to wax dim, that he could not see. And ere the lamp of God went out in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was, and Samuel was laid down to sleep. And the Lord called Samuel, and he answered, Here am I. And he ran unto Eli, and said, Here am I, for thou callest me. And he said, I called not. Lie down again. And he went and lay down. And the Lord called yet again, Samuel. And Samuel rose and went to Eli and said, Here am I, for thou didst call me. And he answered, I called not. My son, lie down again. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, neither was the word of the Lord yet revealed unto him. And the Lord called unto Samuel again the third time. And he arose and went unto Eli and said, Here am I, for thou didst call me. And Eli perceived that the Lord had called the child. Therefore Eli said unto Samuel, Go, lie down. And it shall be, if he call thee, that thou shalt say, Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. So Samuel went and laid down in his place. And the Lord came and stood and called as other times. And Samuel, Samuel. Then Samuel answered, Speak, for thy servant heareth. We're going to look at several points within this calling that speak to principles that are within the calling of God. The first aspect of this is God calls consecrated people. God calls consecrated people. Go back to the first chapter in Samuel. Go to verse number 11 and read that verse.
And she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of mine handmaid.
So his mother Hannah was not able to conceive. So she got before God and asked God to bless her with a child. So here you have what she's saying in her prayer. Come on, read.
If thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid, and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but will give unto thine handmaid a man-child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head.
So Hannah said, Lord, I don't have a child, but if you bless me with a child, I will dedicate that child to labor for you all the days of his life. So here you have this child that was consecrated to the Lord. And the Lord could have called any child, but he called this child. A consecration will always precede a calling. God is not going to call someone that is not committed to the things of God. That is not a given to the thing. God will not wrestle with the world. He's not going to wrestle with worldliness. He's not going to wrestle with ambition. But he's not going to call you to do something special for him and his kingdom when you're not first already consecrated to the things of God. Brother Hampton would often share his testimony with calling, and he would say, way before he received a call, he was already consecrated to the things of God, to the needs of the congregation. Not the things up front, things that no one's seen, things of older saints who couldn't make it out to service, going by there in between service and sharing with them what the service was all about. Not going over there to lay hands on them and anoint them and this, that, and the other when they were sick, but going over to minister to them, to check on them, and to see how they were doing. At service early, making sure things was in order, this, that, and the other. Before God even called, already laboring in the barbershop, in the community, bringing people to church. See, whatever the need, if it's a broom, needs to be sweeping with it. It don't have to be nothing with a bunch of bells and whistles, my God. If there's a need, I'm here. What can I do, God, for your cause, to advance your cause? Lord, I have a burden within for the cause of God to go forward. Lord, please, Lord, let the church go forward. Lord, whatever I can do to help out. God's seen that consecration, that dedication to the things of God. So here we see that a commitment and a consecration precedes a calling. A place is in trouble when they don't have consecrated saints. And let me say this. I'm not talking about consecration from the perspective that you are personally consecrated to your own personal experience. But when you're talking about a calling of God, you're going to see a consecration that advances beyond just their own personal needs.
My God.
You're going to see a consecration that goes beyond. Listen, I can get the service on time, and okay, good, this is for me. But you see something, hold on. I want to hold up. I'm not a devotional leader. Matter of fact, I think the first time that I was even asked to lead a devotion, actually got rebuked because the pastor had a need, reached out and said, come on, I didn't feel worthy. I didn't know if I could, this is the saints of God. It was nothing shady, or I'm at work doing this and now I'm getting up, this, that. No, it wasn't nothing like that. Right. But just the magnitude. The service, I gotta call it to order. Never take light the things of God. Yeah. I don't care if you're all ushering, leading, and serving. If somebody asks you to pray, if somebody asks you to come up and sing the choir, it's a fear. Moses in his car, take your shoes off, man. These are the things of God. Somebody hearing you sing, the seed's going to be planted for their eternal soul to make a decision for Christ. It may be the only time in their life that they ever.
Come on, my God.
They may walk in and see your friendly face. They heard things about the church. They did this, but they see your friendly face. Walk in, you just disarm them.
My God.
Amen. Oh God.
Never take light the things of God. So here he called me, and it was just the magnitude of standing before the people of God, calling the service to order, and ministering before the saints in the order of the service. I'm not talking about the call to me. I'm just talking about just helping.
Right.
I sat there. Well, he is so gifted, one of the only preachers I ever heard that can do the preaching, the singing, the teaching, he's a jack of all trades, my God. Well, so I get it started. After the service, one of the brothers came up to me. Did the pastor just ask you? I said, yeah, you saw that? I said, yeah. And you, tonight? I said, the man of God, whatever you was thinking, he wouldn't have asked you if you were in position.
My God. Come on.
If he didn't perceive that you were in position to help in that capacity. I sat there and I said, Lord. But no doubt he was service. Many people aren't called because they don't even come to church on time.
Right, brother.
Seriously, I mean, this seems like a deep. People think people ain't called because they can't break down those spots. What's those spots? Right. What's those spots? You can't break down the spots. The B spot. What's the spots?
Oh God.
Hold on. Okay, give me the great hopes. Break down the great. No. Many times the consecration to actually be beyond. You barely. The Bible said, forsaking not the assemblies of yourself together, so you should never miss or be late unless there's something extinguished. So many people, their basic, their consecration barely comes. Listen, we live in Laodicea. The conditions are so lukewarm. If you just are a basic spiritual maintenance, you almost look at it like, wow, you are spiritual.
True, brother.
Wow, you study? You come to church on time? That brother's never late. He shouldn't be.
My God.
But that's not superstar status. But in Laodicea, it's so lukewarm that the majority of the people will struggle just have a regular devotion.
My God.
Just be measured to the word that's proclaimed.
My God.
So here we see that consecration preceded the call. Go to verse number 3. This is chapter 3, verse number 3. The second one is he was in position. First one is consecrated. The second was he was in position. Read verse number 3.
ere the lamp of God went out in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was, and Samuel was laid down to sleep. And the Lord called Samuel.
So you see here, it says, Samuel, the heir, the lamp of God went out in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was, and Samuel was laid down to sleep. Here he was, right where he was supposed to be. In position. Many times individuals are not in position for the call. There's something in their life that's not in order. It's important to be in position. My life is in position. God chooses this vessel as a medium to use for His will to be done to the people, to the world. But there's some things in your life that's caused you not to be in position. There's just some things in your and often just say practical stuff. If they call the church to come to your school and to do a service in the auditorium, could we call you up to sing? And all of your friends? Now, we don't see you at school. But what if your friend came to church that night? And the pastor said, hey, come on up and, would that be a stumbling block? Let's take it even more personal. Sometimes people get caught up into fleshy, carnal conversations when they're with their saint friend. That's their buddy in the church. That friend know how they was talking last night. And know who they was running down last night. And know what they was involved in last night. It might not have been sin, but they know you ain't got no business up there.
Oh my, oh my.
They know. And especially among young people. I often say, other young people can tell you who the spiritual young people are. Yes, now they come among the ministers and they're, praise the God, how you doing? Praise? That's all we see.
Okay, go ahead.
But late on Friday night, when they going to get something to eat, and they are there, and that waitress look real fine. He got 2 or 3 buttons unbuttoned. Been working out in the gym. He come to wait on that table. How y'all doing? We doing real good. Oh, Lord help us. Lord.
Oh my.
But many times, people will do things, and I'm not talking about you gotta explain why is the Bible open here, but over here it's kind of partially, and over here it's closed. Be in position, be clear, don't be a stumbling block, be basic stuff. Be in position. Lord, I don't want to do anything, involve myself in anything that will cause me to not be in position if you need me to do something for you. Go to verse number 4. The call of God is persistent. Verse number 4.
That the Lord called Samuel, and he answered.
Stop right there. Verse number 6.
And the Lord called yet again Samuel.
Go to verse number 8.
And the Lord called Samuel again the 3rd time. And he arose and went to Eli.
Go to verse number 10.
And the Lord came and stood and called as at other times.
Sometimes people say, I'm dealing with a calling. How do I work with it? The calling of God is persistent.
Oh God.
You can do what you want. It's no light urge that kind of goes away. It's not something that you get after a heated service. But the calling of God is persistent. You won't be able to do nothing with it. You won't be able to quiet it down. You won't be able, it'll just stay there. The thing that God would have for you to do, it'll be right there. He'll just keep working with you on it. Keep working with you. You don't have to worry, well, I think I did one. Well, it'll be something there. It's just you can sense God. You can sense a tug there. You can sense, and you in humility would say, you know what, I don't feel it, but still you would sense something. It's just staying there. It's just staying there. You're wrestling with it at nighttime. You before God, Lord, if this is not of you, then Lord, take it away. Lord, I'm not just trying to be doing, so I don't want to be, I don't want to just be. I was telling someone earlier, we was having a conversation about callings, and I'm going to get to some of this later. But it was the complexity of laboring for God and the depth of it. One individual whose husband was being used in a mighty way said, you don't know how much I long for just having a common husband. Just a good brother who go to work, come home. Let me say it like this.
Stop.
The calling is so strong. If you could do something else, it wasn't a calling. If you can push it away, it wasn't there to begin with.
My God.
With it, there's an understanding of the magnitude of it. And let me say, when you are laboring, your eternal destination will be more linked to issues involving your laboring than issues of just straight sin. Let me say that again. That's why people get an itchy. I want to. Do you know what you're doing? Are you serious? You're welcoming. You're dealing with issues and high spiritual principalities and issues. I'm not talking about going to a club, cheating on your husband. I'm not talking, no. But you're welcoming complicated issues you got to judge the right way. You got to deal with. You got to deal with God using and not receiving it. You got to deal with having thick skin and not getting an attitude and people misusing you and talk. You got to deal with your children being maligned. You got to deal. You got to all these things.
My God.
But the calling of God will show you. But it'll be so strong. It'll be so strong. The desire, that burden will be so strong. You got to deal with the fact that you may never be compensated to what you could have been. You may never have the opportunity to go some places that you could. You may never. But that calling. That calling. And many times it's not the cute stuff about it. It's the burden bearing. Lord, I want to bear your burden. Lord, it's not about being up in this, that, and that. For Lord Zion's sake, for Zion's sake, I shall not rest. David said, if I esteem not Jerusalem above my chief joy, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. Lord, Jerusalem. Nehemiah said, as soon as he had a lofty position, he was making, no doubt, big money. He was a part of the king's cabinet. He was a part of it. He was his cupbearer. He tried the different things before the king could get them. But still, soon as the saints came, soon as they came down, he said, how is Jerusalem? How is the saints? How are the Jews? How are the burden was assessed? Even though I'm here, but what about the people of God? So the call is persistent. Persistent in the tug. Go to number 8.
And the Lord called Samuel again the third time. And he said, and he arose and went to Eli and said, here am I, for thou didst call me. And Eli perceived that the Lord had called the child.
I may get to this a little bit later, but the calling will be perceived by leadership. The calling will be perceived by leadership. The Bible speaks about let things be done decently and in order. In the book of Acts, and we'll probably get to it a little bit earlier, and that's why we talk about don't proclaim yourself. Okay? It's an order. And you'll notice a pattern that they would go up to the apostles, and the apostles would confirm. They would evaluate, they would proceed, they would send, whoa. And then there was a recognizing in the body. And no doubt, that's where Paul gave the instructions over in Titus, chapter 1, verse 7 down to there. Is also in Timothy, the letter to Timothy. It talks about qualifications of calling, and in different places it gave tidbits here and there. the leadership, he went back and he said, I perceive it. I perceive it. Oftentimes, that's why the ministry will begin to use somebody in a certain capacity. There may not be a big announcement made. They say, you were just sent. You were just sent. Just a little bit here. And they, before that's asked, they'll be before God and perceive something. And now through there's a vetting, there's a patience. You don't want to put too much on them too quick. There's this and the other. But rarely ever will there be a calling in which the leadership didn't perceive. And let me go a step further. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the saints will too. And I'll get into that. The saints will consent. Something they got to receive you. It's just something way out of left field somewhere. What is it? Even though they may be submissive to leadership, God will also commend. The Bible said, he whom the Lord commended. You just sense a certain commending with that calling. And that's when I'm going to get to that in a little bit later. The gift shall make room. All right? Let's go to verse number 9. So we got perceived by leadership. Verse number 9.
Therefore Eli said unto Samuel.
Now let me back up. The leadership don't call you. God calls you.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying? Saints don't call you. Or God's hand is on you. God calls. But there is a perceiving that comes with that commending of the call. All right, go ahead and read.
Therefore Eli said unto Samuel, Go, lie down. It shall be, if he call thee, that thou shalt say, Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. And the Lord came.
I'm sorry. With the calling, there is a humility to follow counsel. He went back and asked the man of God. The man of God perceived it and then gave him counsel. Many times when you have people operating in the flesh, there is a lack of humility there. And not humility, people think humility is, I'm not taking glory, I'm not trying. The greatest element of humility when it comes to calling is your ability to your ability to receive counsel from those above you. Okay. Your ability to receive counsel, it just comes with it. And the greater your calling, the more you sense it. They don't got to wrangle with you or rival you. They ain't got to this, that, and you ain't got going on with your jaws puffed out because you didn't get the. It's just, if you don't prefer that, I'm not going to get 3 people. Did you know that they didn't let me do? You'll see just a humility. I'll just give it to God. No, first of all, I don't even consider worthy. If you don't feel it, no, there's nothing at all. It's amazing the humility to follow counsel. Absolutely. There's no problem at all. No problem at all. And that is honestly probably the greatest element of the laying on of hands. And I hope I got time to get on all of it. You will sense, because those that are in the position, the pastors that are there, they will sense this is of God. There is no eagerness. There is no self. There is no, I almost got to push it. There is no, I'm ready. It's just a humility there. And wanting to know. Sitting there. What about this? What about that? Okay, that makes sense to me. But many times individuals either get up under bad counsel, or there's just a lack. They always are wrangling with authority. Here they are just coming in and everything out their mouth is, listen, when you get you got enough humility that you would say, listen, I ain't touching them. I leave that with God. I'm not cut. I'll leave that with God. You're not getting me caught up in it. You're not getting me to go and rank. And listen, I don't don't care the legitimacy of your claims, your charges, whatever else you got. That don't even matter. It should be a lack of humility. I mean, there needs to be an element of humility there. Just a humility. Don't come thinking just because, and I hope I don't get ahead of myself. Here you come, some Johnny come lately, but you got something to say about everybody that's in a position of authority. I don't care if you don't feel that that person is as capable as you think you are, or as capable as you would hope they should be. There should still be something. That person could be older. Amen. That person may not walk as fast as they used to walk. May not know the scriptures and preach as loud, but there'll still be a humility there that you will honor their office, you will honor their calling, you'll honor what they've done beforehand. Amen. There's just a humility there. Just a sincere humility. Because listen to me. You will not receive counsel from those you don't respect. Amen. You will not receive counsel. You may hear it, you may say it, this, that, and the other, but you will not seek it and you won't receive it. That's why the enemy comes and tries to get you puffed up and thinking you're better than them. So you'll never sit down from them and be mentored to receive something. I don't care who they are, what you may know more revelation than they know, but if they've been in it longer, they got some experience that you can glean from. They got something they can offer you. But so many times, the spirit of the world will creep in the church, and the individual will come in with a replacement mindset instead of a humility mindset. I want to be the VP of this department of marketing, and so I'm trying to get the VP of marketing up out of here, and this, that, and the other. Instead of just humility saying, Director of marketing, could you help me out? Yes. Could you show me the way? What about the culture? Well, what things have you learned? If you learn from nothing else than their mistakes, you learn something. So here, there is some humility to follow counsel. He followed the counsel. And then verse number 10, there was a submission to the call. Go ahead, 2. Verse number 10.
And the Lord came and stood and called as at other times, Samuel, Samuel. Then Samuel answered, Speak, for thy servant here.
So you see there, final submission to the call. Lord, I've got instruction, I've received the calling. Lord, I'm here. I may not know the extent, or I may not know exactly where, what, and how, but I can sense it clearly. I sense it clearly, Lord. And I'm humbling and submitting myself. And I told you last week that the calling is often the call to prepare. All right, go back to verse number 1. Let's consider these 2 matters about the call. One is, with the call, there's usually a need for that call. Wow. And number 2 is, the calling or the gift given will always produce when it's given by God and the individual is laboring where God sent them to labor. We're going to look at this. Go to Proverbs chapter 18. 1 Samuel 3, 1, and then go to Proverbs 18.
And the child Samuel ministered to the Lord. The Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision.
My Lord, what a need. Keep reading.
And it came to pass at that time, when Eli was laid down in his place, and his eyes began to wax dim.
So we said the Lord was precious or very scarce in those days. There was no open vision. Eli's eyes began to wax. Verse number 3.
And ere the lamp of God went out in the temple of the Lord.
So you've seen a need. Oftentimes with a calling, there'll be a need. Sometimes you won't go to Proverbs 18:16. Sometimes you won't perceive it right away. But there's a need. And once you get into your calling, it'll almost be like, where would we be if it wasn't for you?
My God.
Where it was, you didn't have to beat the door down. I'm going to get to that. You didn't have to move somebody out of the way. But it was a need. And this is so beautiful. Let's just say this is a Phillips screwdriver head. And it needs a Phillips screwdriver to fit perfectly. With a Holy Ghost calling of God and an individual walking in the Spirit, you will sense the need was exactly connected to your gifting. It'll almost be eerie. Whoa! It was like God knows what he's doing.
Yes,
Go to
he
Proverbs
does.
18:16. Come on, read. Proverbs 18:16.
A man's gift maketh room for him,
A man's gift maketh room for him.
and bringeth him before great men.
Okay, just like in the kingdom, if a man is gifted, a man is resourced, that king will find room for him. Let me give it to you, those that follow history to an extent. Some of you may be old enough, or if you follow history, you heard of a man named Henry Kissinger.
Yes.
He was a tremendous statesman, but before he became Secretary of State and all these great positions, he was a political scientist that was extremely scholarly at Harvard. And he began to write papers and do research and this, that, and the other. Next thing you know, D.C., the government, I think he had been called in to testify, and when he went in to testify, he knew more about that subject matter than any of the senators or any of the people that was in position, that the government had put in position for that. So he went back home after he went and testified and did what he did. The phone rang.
Call it.
Richard Nixon. Come on. We got a place for you. Richard Nixon ended up cutting up.
Yeah.
Got involved in some foolishness. When a person gets involved in something and they get removed, there's a bunch of things that take place, domino effect. So on, so well, Gerald Ford steps in. He said, Henry, hold on, you ain't going nowhere.
Right.
He didn't have to come in and say, you know, your guy that's in this position now, he ain't about nothing. He ain't good, but he needs to be removed, and he don't know what I know. But I wouldn't even want under to audition with this. You just asked me to come, I came. Whatsoever your hand findeth to do, do it with all of your might.
My God.
I came down and I testified, this, that, and the other. So government said, we're going to make room for you.
Okay.
When Nixon messed up, Ford said, others may be going, but what you need, we're making room for you. You don't have to worry about people getting in your way.
My
You
God.
don't have to worry about if God calls you and equips you, you best believe there'll be a need for you and there'll be a place for you to operate.
My Lord.
All right, now with that, but Lee, what do you say then if the door isn't being open? Well, one of three things. One, you wasn't called. Let me back up. You wasn't called by God.
Okay.
You might have heard a voice. You might have called yourself. But everybody always had me say one time, listen, if you got something, trust me, you ain't going to keep the people from it. You ain't got to worry about that. So one, if the door ain't never open, there was no calling. Two, there was a calling, but it's not your time. There was a calling, but it's not your time. Just help out. But oftentimes individuals feel like, I gotta, and they come in trying to kick people aside and undermine all this other stuff, and they end up losing their position that God had for them because they didn't understand the patience. I'm going to have to get that as we close this series out next week. They didn't have the patience to wait on God. The Bible said the gift shall. That means that there wasn't even room yet. Did you catch that? Read that again, brother.
A man's gift maketh room for him,
A man's gift maketh room for him. Read.
and bringeth him before great
So in
men.
other words, it may not be there yet, but it maketh, gotta make it. So number two was, perhaps it was a calling, but it's not time yet. And the third way is someone is standing in the way. There's a calling for you to operate in this capacity, but somebody is in the way. Don't worry about it. God will.
He's gonna move.
Don't touch him. And I can go into David, I can go into all these examples, this and the other. Don't touch him. You're being tried right now. You being tried. David almost messed up. But he didn't do nothing. But he ain't punching. He ain't stabbing. He cut the skirt. Don't you go around cutting on people's skirts. You're in some back corner with your scissors out. Oh, what they saying made me right. She ain't giving me no opportunity. And he ain't giving me. And he, don't you put your scissors back. Don't mess. God got it.
Yes,
God, you ain't got to worry about it. Just be patient. Now, I'm going to get to this in a moment, but David had to be patient for a long time. People don't perceive that, but I'll get to that. But in that period of time, God is doing something for you that's going to equip you to be effective when you show.
My God.
The gift produces. Proverbs 17:8. When God calls and gives, it will produce. The calling of God produces. The calling of God produces. Be careful if somebody talking about they called God and they'll never produce nothing. He said no inspiration, no instruction, no power, no just doing something. Just no. Sometimes I would say, all right, let me get on Sunday school teacher for a minute. Sometimes I get on my chair and I just love it when they come back on the Friday night. When my children come back, I say, ooh, every once in a while I should get an ooh daddy. Ooh daddy. Daniel and the lion's den. Oh, daddy, did you know? Daddy, the lion's mouth was shut. Dad, did you know? Dad, did you? I'm like, what in the world is it? Whatever your lesson you put together, you produce something in there. But they went home with a revelation of Daniel and the lion. Daddy, it don't matter, Daddy. I know folk is after you. Don't worry. God will shut their mouth. Well, keep on coming with it. Amen. I'm saying, where in the world does this come from? Some little Sunday school lesson. And let me get to this. I'm sorry. No, discipline. Stay right here. Try not to preach it. Read it.
A gift is as a precious stone in the eyes of him that has it.
Man, let me tell you this right now. If a person really gets something from God and they realize I wasn't this smart to understand what God has called me to understand. I wasn't this deep. I didn't have what I had. These things that came from God. I wasn't deserving it. I didn't grow up like this. I didn't have this. But God has given me something. It's precious. You'll find them living with a certain watchfulness. It's I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to do anything. I'm not doing anything to please man, but I don't want to do anything that's going to hinder what God. It's precious to me. You can get close to the line. You can deal with this. You can deal with that. But I'm not doing it. I'm staying far away from it. Why? Because what God is doing, what God has called me, what God has actually considered me worthy to be a part of is so precious to me. It's so valuable to me. I don't want to do nothing questionable. No, I don't care if I'm on vacation, ain't nobody around. It's amazing to me how many times I've been 1,000 miles away from the saint and somebody walk up and say, Brother Lee.
That's right. That's right.
Praise the Lord, brother.
That's right.
I'll tell you a funny story, a humorous story. I had won an award, shared this with some of you, and it was out in Utah. I had not been to Salt Lake City, Utah. Well, the award right after the award ceremony, they had a concert. Well, the concert was Elton John. This is a rock singer. He was big in the 70s, 80s. He was big. Big in the jets. Go ahead. That's right. Just give me knowing Elton John. Oh, Lord. The Rocket Man. Oh, so here, I get the invite. Lee Hampton, you received this award coming out to Utah, and you're receiving it at the Rocket Man, Elton John's concert. Okay, so in my mind, I'm thinking like they got like concerts. They have like award nights, like a television show, MTV. It'd be like a performance, and then I say, and the Oscar of the year or the song of the year. Then it'd be another performance. I say, I'm not. All I need as much foolishness is going on today, Sister Doris, all I need is for somebody on their phone, you know, phones is everywhere. Somebody on the phone somewhere see me sitting there and don't even know all the background, but just see me up on the front row, and they go on for Rocket Man, and I'm sitting there trying to look sober. Sitting there, and somebody, oh, did you see Brother Lee? Oh, at the Rocket Man concert. So I said, listen, I'm not involved. I can't. They said, no. The concert is after. I said, the award is given before, and there's a separation. They said, yes, it is. It's actually an award ceremony that actually ends, and then all the concert tours and everybody that's not here, that's part of that, it all come in, so on and so forth. I said, are you sure? He said, absolutely. So we flew out, and going to the concert. I'm sorry, the award ceremony. My wife is a witness. I'm sitting here in the line, and saints, as sure as I'm sitting here in Salt Lake City, Utah, 1,000 miles from home, up in a mountain somewhere, Lee Hampton, Lee! Lord, in the name of Jesus. And this one gets me. The Rocket Man, Lee Hampton. What are you doing here? What? Let me explain. You see all these people around me, they're from Qualitrix, which is a research and technology company. We partnered to develop an assessment. This assessment won an award, and before the concert, I get this award. I'm not going to the concert. I'm just getting this award, and then we leave it. We go to the concert. Thank you. A witness. Yeah, that's why you would take a witness with you. But the point is, saints, it says, read that again, Brother Frank. Listen what it says, saints.
A gift is as a precious stone in the eyes of him that has it.
Brother, it's precious. It's precious. Whatever little, but you may think, well, I don't do nothing but the children. Listen, I remember I was even courting. I didn't want nothing. I didn't want to be nowhere. And somebody walk up and write. I'm going to tell you, don't try to be used and court at the same time, if you can help it. Because that's going to be a time in your life. If they can find someone, those folks that love you, talk about, how you do that? Don't act like you want to get married. Don't. If it's anything, if it's anywhere, they going to find it. Oh, I saw. So I said, Lord, just help me to be watchful and prayerful, because I don't want anybody, even if they happen to be looking, to find something legitimate. Now people can fault find it is what it is. You're going to find people who say that, but it's something precious that you'll take when God really blesses you with something. Keep reading, brother.
A gift is as a precious stone in the eyes of him that has it. Whithersoever it turneth, it prospers.
Whithersoever it what?
Whithersoever it turneth,
Wherever it turneth, it prospers. The calling of God produces fruit. When God truly calls you, He's going to produce. Whithersoever, and don't say, so-and-so, they just don't like me. So, listen, that's when you get the confirmation. When you can sense opposition, but God still blesses.
My God.
You can sense everybody's not right there with you, this, that, and that can cause some people that may kind of have a problem with you, this, that, and the other, but if they can sense, hold on, whatever I'm dealing with, I can sense something, not no man, I can sense they're not fighting, they're not this, and I can sense God, hold on. Hold on. The calling of God produces. Now mind you, go to Isaiah 55:10. Don't measure your productivity by the eye. Don't measure the fruit by the natural eye. When you're laboring for God, results will not always be immediate. They won't always be visible to a naked eye. Isaiah 55:10. It will produce, the calling of God will produce whithersoever it goes. But it's not always going to be measurable by the naked eye or immediately. Isaiah 55:10 and 11.
For as the rain cometh down, and the snow from heaven, and returneth not thither, but watereth the earth, and maketh it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater. So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereunto I sent it.
He typed this to a rain. He said, I never sent rain that didn't produce. The rain had an impact. Now, you may say, like Brother Kinley said, the gospel is going to be a witness. To some, it's going to witness to them. And they're going to make a move. Other guys are going to use it to witness against them in the judgment. Don't ever cause yourself to look at the immediate results when you're asked to labor for God and measure your success by what you see. Okay. Don't ever allow the enemy to plague your mind because you thought you should have gotten this result, or you thought they should have waved their hand when you sung the song. Listen, you might have sung so deep that you got so deep in them that they contemplated. They shouldn't have been shouting. They should have been thinking. And now you may think, well, they shouted louder on mine. Listen, it might have been more uplifting immediately, but the results more shallow. That one was actually less visible, but deeper. That sermon, that exhortation, that, it don't always take hype. Just do what God say do. And know that if you prepared, you got before God, the work. Sometimes, man, you sit there and the one you think you flopped on, somebody come 6 months later and say, and quote it verbatim, that exhortation that you gave. And how it blessed their soul. But all you thought was, did nobody come to the altar? Did nobody jump up? When brother so-and-so or sister so-and-so did this, it was people all in the pit. Don't get into that. Because if you're not careful, you're going to begin to operate for that. Now you're waiting, you're wanting to, testify that they go forth, and when I went forth, oh, wow. So no, it's deeper than that. This is the things of God. Don't worry about it. The word will never return void. God will bless. It may take time. That's why God, with the examples he used, study them. He used like a farmer. You know what I'm saying? He said, a sower went forth to sow. He don't sow right now and come back out. This ain't fast food. He's a farmer. He never used fast food. A man goes to the drive-thru and then they get to the people and say, no. He said sow. Sow it, then water it. Go home and pray about it. One time I was leaving the prison and Holy Ghost inspired me. I began, you pray for the message, you pray for the church. I left there and began to pray as hard as I did before. Afterwards, that the things I said would be understood and that they take it back to their room, God. And it went, Lord, please, God, Lord, please. So it takes time. If you're laboring in the things of God, it takes time. It takes time. You study all the examples. We're dealing with souls. We're dealing with people. And it takes time. All right. Let's go to with you. 1 Timothy 5:8. 1 Timothy 5:8. We want to deal with several things before we end the night. We deal with altar working. We want to deal with ministering to the saints in the local congregation, the relationship with the pastor. But let's look at 1 Peter 5:8, 1 Timothy 5:8. And I just want to touch on the point of when you're laboring, your family should be your priority. I mean, several points tonight. Scripturally. 1 Timothy 5:8, go and read.
But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith, and is worse than
okay, with this text, and we know he's talking about the bishop, but it really is transferable in regards to the way God operates. Because the principle he used, in another place he says, if he can't take care of his home, how can he take care of the church? Right. And he's establishing principles that you must understand that if a person is ministering and they're failing as a husband,
My God.
failing as a wife, they also fail in ministry. These personal callings precede public callings. The principles, and if we have time, we'll get into this. The personal callings will precede the public callings.
My God.
If a father is a great Sunday school superintendent, but is failing and completely neglecting his children. I mean, he's got the classes, he visits each one, they got this, that, and the other. But his children say, I can't remember the last time that we talked, that he showed an interest in me and the things that.
My God.
Just make sure.
That's a good point.
Just make sure that your home life is seen as a priority, because really that strengthens your public demonstration.
That's right.
That strengthens what you do elsewhere. Here you have a mother is awesome. I mean, she's a tremendous prayer warrior, usher, choir member, this, that, and the other. But home is in disarray.
My God.
Father never neglects his prison ministry. I'm using it as an example. Outreach ministry, whatever it is. I mean, he gives it a 4-course meal. He studies the Hebrew, the Greek, the Old Testament types, lines it up with the New Testament, and then ends with prophecy. And ties it all back together again. But he gives his wife leftovers. You gave them a 4-course meal? You lined it up. But here, you couldn't even look her in her eyes and give her undivided attention for 5 minutes. And get into her world and allow and give her the same attention you gave those grizzly men for 50 minutes. And the 2 hours you spent beforehand preparing. Here she's sitting there starving. I wish I was the Old Testament. There's a way you go after that Old Testament. I wish brothers going forth in the song list, I wish I was an Evening Light songbook. Because the way you working that Evening Light songbook, my Lord. And if you're not careful, you end up causing your family to actually feel a certain way about what you do. Yes, sir. You'll find your family feeling a certain way about what you do. And let me just say this. Sisters, God has mightily used and will call and use mothers, sisters. And many congregations, including this one, have been mightily helped. But spiritual callings does not preempt your natural.
That's right.
Don't get to the point in which you're so driven that you're neglecting your home,
Come on.
your family,
Come on.
so on and so forth. And let me just take a little bit of side road here. Husbands, if you got a wife that is laboring, just like you need support, why don't you support her while she's laboring to get her Sunday school together and mess around and get the children ready? Say, I got them. You go ahead and do what you do. You go ahead. I need you to help me. Let me be there for you to allow God to help you with the nursery ministry or the music or whatever it is. I'm there for you. Don't you be so spiritual that you can't help her out.
My God.
When the time comes, if you're not careful, careful, you would think that there's nothing for her to do spiritually. All you're supposed to do is just listen, make sure the bread is this level and make sure the clothes is fine. That's all you do. That's your laboring for the kingdom. Sometimes God may call them to do something and to help out in some capacity. No, that does not preempt or that is not above their calling. They need to make sure this is taken care of. But if God does and they do have this taken care of, you shouldn't be beyond helping them, supporting them, there for them, just like you would want to.
Amen. Amen.
Good.
Let me just touch this while we're here. Go to Romans 14:6. Ministering with the opposite sex. Ministering with the opposite sex. After this, you're going to go to 1 Corinthians 10:13 and then Ephesians 4:27. We want to deal with these three principles when ministering with the opposite sex as far as Scripture goes. Come on, read it.
He that regards the day, regarded
Romans 14:16.
Let not then your good be evil spoken of.
When you're ministering with the opposite sex, be careful that whatever you're doing cannot be taken the wrong way and people say certain things. In other words, she might need prayer, but it probably is not the wisest thing for you to go over there at 1 in the morning by yourself up in your house.
Amen. Yeah. Amen.
She might need counsel, but it probably is not the wisest thing for you to spend 4 hours with her alone somewhere. Don't let your good be evil. And I'm going to take it a step further. When it's possible, it's good for the same sex to labor with the same sex. Now, we know that there will be some circumstances, and I'll get to that. That's why we need laborers in the kingdom. There will be some circumstances in which support may be needed. But when it's possible, and you'll see the pastor this thing, you watch him operate, this is so much good. Because many times they can relate better.
Yes.
There's just a relatability. Sometimes there's a comfort. Sometimes they deal with some stuff they don't want to tell you.
Yes.
No. So sometimes there's a comfort level, and then while they're laboring, it may be something that an additional support or the pastor may need, and those that are laboring with them will say, come over and help us out. They vetted it. They understood the ramifications of it. They know what it is. Is it sensitive? Is it not? So on and so forth. So remember while you're ministering with the opposite sex, don't let your good be evil spoken of. 1 Corinthians 10:13. Read. The second point when ministering with the opposite sex.
There have no temptation taken you,
That's it.
but such is common to man.
I'm sorry. Go to Matthew 24. That's a good scripture right there. You just read it well. That's not the one we want. Somebody give me the scriptures. I pray that you enter not into temptation. Maybe 25. Yeah, there's 25. Verse 30. '41. 25, 41. Go ahead, read.
Then shall he say unto them on the left hand,
26:41. Sorry about that. Turn to Matthew 26:41. Let's deal with the second point of ministering with the opposite sex.
watch and pray, that you enter not into temptation.
Okay. You want to be watchful when you're ministering with the opposite sex that you don't enter into temptation. You're spiritual, but you're still human.
Yes.
Too much, too frequent, and too intimate conversation with the opposite sex, you're human. Something can happen.
My God.
Something can jump off. And let me say this. You may be watchful for yourself, but you don't understand how they dealing with your frequent conversation, your frequent attention, and your frequent this. So you're not just watching for yourself, watch for them.
Yes.
You may not even perceive the fact that they're getting a whole lot out of this. They began looking forward to this. So on and so forth, and here you are with far more frequency than is necessary. Sunday morning, we was down at the church and we were praying, and phone came, and on the other end said, Lee wanted to say Happy Father's Day. I said, wow, I appreciate this. Mother in the church, another congregation somewhere, and we had labored with, and it was so tremendous because the only communication that was ever given was that which was necessary. It was never just short. How you doing today? What's your day going like? I was just calling you. I ain't called for nothing. I just called to check on you. If it was ever a communication, it was necessary. Matter of fact, they got to the point where if there was another way to get this information, I'm not going to. But if it's necessary to get this, then it would. A lot of times when you're laboring, you ever heard this statement? A man in uniform looks good. It's not necessarily. It is not necessarily that the uniform is fitting a certain way in the look. Usually, a uniform brings with it a certain authority.
Yes.
And there's just something in humans that are attracted to authority, to a person that is influential.
Okay.
Sometimes a person is like a star that's influential, you're like, whoa, they're not even that cute.
Right.
But it's something about it. It's that influence. And honestly, it's a way in which a person with influence or authority even carry themselves as attractive.
Okay.
Sometimes they just walk into a room, they get a president. They not even, but there's something. And if you're not careful, you don't realize it's somebody that may feel a certain way about you. And we just look. And then too, you got to understand this. Sometimes people need attention. And who better than to get attention from the person that everybody is seeking attention from? So you just got to just be careful that you don't put them. Here you thinking you innocent, you call this brother, and you're a good counselor to send you to the, you don't understand. He's struggling every time you see your phone number.
My God.
It's innocent with you. You don't think you just teach him the same.